From the Folger Shakespeare Library, this is Shakespeare Unlimited. I'm Farah Kareem Cooper, the Folger director. You may know Al Letson as a journalist. He's the host of the popular investigative podcast, Reveal. Before that, he created and hosted the public radio show State of the Reunion. But Letson is also an actor, writer, playwright, and poet. DC Comics recently released his series Mr. Terrific Year 1, and he's currently showrunning a forthcoming TV series called Kingmaker for Starz. His play, Julius X, a re-envisioning of the tragedy of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, opens later this month at the Folger Theatre. It's directed by Nicole Brewer. Julius X isn't an adaptation of Julius Caesar. It's a new play that borrows from Shakespeare's language, characters, and plot to tell a different story. In Letson's play, Julius X is a fictionalized version of Malcolm X. Just like the real Malcolm, Julius returns from a pilgrimage to Mecca with plans to break from the powerful nation of Islam. Some of his closest advisors think those plans are dangerous and decide to assassinate Julius to stop him. The play mixes lines from Shakespeare with Letson's original poetry and songs. It expands the roles of Shakespeare's female characters as well as that of Cinna the poet. In Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Cinna the poet is killed by a mob when he's mistaken for one of the conspirators. Here's Al Letson in conversation with Barbara Bogave.
I was hoping you could read from the very beginning of the play or perform
Sure.
the Cinna speech.
Sure. So this is Cinna the poet, and this is the very beginning of the play. This is not the story you know, but somewhere in between. The penumbra where all dreams are given birth. The land of our ancestors forgotten and lost in the recesses of our minds. Before there were TVs, movie screens, hell, even before there were books, held the wonderment of what could be, we used to dream, children. Dream. Close your eyes, tune in, turn on, and drop out. But now time done got all convoluted when we wasn't looking. She done jammed up her airwaves, led us with low frequency, no bandwidth, nowhere to broadcast, no antennae to receive, nothing but white noise. Can you dig it? And so we begin. Our destiny wrapped in the cloak of our path, the path we now walk where reality and surreality meet. Dreams die, fall off trees like leaves, nightmares form into crows and land on our limbs and sing the new hymns that have left us in this place. Shake it off, close your eyes, and dream, children. Dream.
Wow. I love it. Thank you so much. I hear that
You're welcome.
other voice in you, the minister voice.
Yeah, it's in my blood. It just kind of pops out.
Yeah, your father was a minister, I know, but man, it's strong. So tell me about writing this opening speech. What place did you want to get your audience?
Yeah, I wanted to, the whole purpose of Cinna was, especially in the beginning, was to introduce the audience to a new way of thinking about the tragedy of Julius Caesar and to prepare them that, this is not the story that we're remixing it and changing it up and doing different things with it. So I felt like I had to do something to kind of introduce the audience into this new world. So for me, Cinna represents a bridge or a portal, if you will, into what you know and into the unknown.
That makes so much sense because sin is also that perfect metaphor for the violence that
Yes.
gets more senseless violence. It just
Yeah.
goes on. And you give Cinna more of a role throughout your play. He's the commenter.
Yeah, I think that I was thinking a lot about who needed to be served more in the original text when moving it into this world. And so The things that I was thinking about is Cinna. And then I thought a lot about the women in the original play. Like, I just felt like, look, I love Shakespeare, but I thought the women roles were underwritten. So those were the two things that I really wanted to concentrate on as far as like characters that I wanted to elevate.
This is a little bit off the subject, but as I was reading that opening, it reminded me that you have covered a lot of protests as a journalist, and you did once jump to the aid of someone at a rally against hate, and that you were covering. He was getting chased and attacked by the mob, and you shielded him. And ironically, in speaking to Julius Caesar in a senseless mob, it turned out that it was Antifa attacking a right-wing guy. And I just wondered if you flashed back to that personal experience you had of mob violence when you were writing this.
No, because I wrote this long before that happened. I wrote Julius X like many, 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 many moons ago. And the incident that happened in Berkeley, I want to say that was 2016. In the moment that I jumped on top of that guy, I just thought I was going to die. That was the only thing I was thinking about. The only thing I was thinking about.
No play jumped to your mind.
No, I wasn't. All I was thinking is, what are we doing? And, this may not have been a good idea, Al.
Okay, so this play goes way back. What is the origin?
The origin is when I was a kid. So I'm dyslexic, and I struggled with reading when I was younger. I learned how to read through comic books, which I have a deep, abiding love for. But when I got into high school, we started reading Shakespeare, and I understood it. I think I understood it better than most of the kids in my class because, Shakespeare is written like poetry, and it's like the lines are short, and it was easy for me to track. And I remember being in class one day, and we were reading Othello, and Iago's monologue when he's saying, like, you can bet on it or put money in the bank that I'm going to get this guy.
Well, yeah, Iago says straight out, I've told you over and over, I hate the Moor.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember telling my classmates, because they didn't get it, I was like, come on, y'all, he's saying, like, you can bank on it, And I remember doing the little monologue, taking the text and speaking it in a way to my classmates that, they could understand. So for me, like, Shakespeare became like a little bit of a superpower because I understood it. And then there was a production of The Tragedy of Julius Caesar, and I really wanted to play Mark Antony because that speech, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear, is one of my all-time favorites. The writing on it is just exquisite. I absolutely love it. And I wasn't cast at all. And I was ticked off about it. I'm 17 and didn't get the role, didn't get any role, was really mad. And then fast forward, I was in my 20s and they did a local production of it in Jacksonville. And again, I didn't get cast. And I was just furious. And with that one, I felt like, this is a long time ago, but that one I felt like they weren't doing non-traditional casting. So the idea of a black kid playing Mark Antony just seemed wild to them. So I never got cast.
So now you're furious. I'm furious. Really pissed off.
Yes. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make my own version of it. And I also grew up loving Malcolm X. When I was a kid, I picked up, my mom had a copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X, and when I was really young, I tried to read it and didn't really understand it. Got into high school and read it, and it seemed in weird ways to make sense of my life. And I held close to that text. So I think that I don't remember exactly the inspiration for mashing the two together, but I remember where all the ingredients came from. And I can see, it's an easy thing to cook.
An easy recipe. It's almost like, it's reminding me of a lot of people come on this show and talk about, especially people who grew up in England, they talk about how Shakespeare, their whole lives, since it starts so early, they've been in conversation with him.
Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't feel like I was in conversation with Shakespeare, but I definitely felt like I was in conversation with Malcolm X. and that I was pondering like the things that he was saying, both pre-pilgrimage and post-pilgrimage, because those are, it feels like very different versions of the man. I think the Shakespeare thing kind of leads into the Malcolm X thing in the sense that, and I'm not blaming this on anybody, I'm just saying that this is the way I felt about it. Shakespeare felt like something that was not for me, that was for living in the South. I mean, it was for rich white people. And so, I think that what Malcolm taught me was, sometimes you just got to kick. If they won't let you in, you kick the door down. I have just as much a right to all of it. Like, I am an American, I am a human being, and this is a part of, what it means to be a human being. Shakespeare told stories that like touch on the human experience. And they're not owned by the British. They're not owned by Americans. They're owned by the world, and I'm a part of that. And so all of those things kind of play together.
And you see those essential stories in Julius Caesar representing Malcolm X because there's so many parallels
Right.
between the two. And I feel like we need a primer right now. Maybe you should remind everybody about the historical rift between Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, which mirrors this conflict between Caesar and the conspirators.
Yeah, on the Malcolm X side, so, Malcolm was a minister in the Nation of Islam, which was a sect of black Muslims who practiced their own version of Islam. And, Malcolm was the most famous minister. And the leader, Elijah Muhammad, the leader like kind of mentored Malcolm, but Malcolm began to outshine him. And then at some point, Malcolm found out that the leader was doing, things that men do,
Sleeping
especially men in
around.
leadership. Right, exactly. And so it caused a big rift. But also, on the other side, I think that there was a lot of jealousy within the organization towards Malcolm because he was becoming so famous. And so Malcolm left the organization. He went on a pilgrimage. He learned, I think what some would say, the true form of Islam, and he converted. And then he came back and advocated, as he was before, for black people, but he was doing it in more of a focused way than he had before. And also his look on the world and race changed. He began to understand the nuance of it, right? Like, he didn't think that all white people were devils, although he probably thought a lot of them were, but he began to like think about that the way to go about equality for black folks, that you need allies. So yeah, he was just an amazing human being. But also very much a human being. He was flawed, like all of us are. And so at the end of his life, he was murdered at the Audubon Ballroom. A lot of people believe the government had something to do with it, and also the Nation of Islam had something to do with it. And so
there were
like
infiltrators, government infiltrators from the FBI and the New York PD, and it's a hornet's nest.
It's a hornet's nest full of conspiracy theories, but somewhere in there is truth. What is definitely true is that he was betrayed by the community that he had led so long. And so with Julius Caesar, it was a lot of that as well. I think, the huge difference between Julius Caesar and Malcolm X is that, Julius Caesar was a tyrant and Malcolm X was not, So in the play, Julius X, the character is much more Malcolm than he is Julius Caesar. So it's sort of like Malcolm in the circumstances of Julius Caesar.
Yeah, the differences are really interesting. I mean, Shakespeare doesn't set Caesar up so much as a tyrant as an incipient tyrant, a possible potential tyrant. Also, he's a figure of mob worship, and so is Julius X.
Yeah.
But the main beef in your play that Brutus and Cassius have with Julius X is that he wants to break from the nation, and he has different ideas about the use of violence now after his pilgrimage, and they still want the protection and the power that the Nation of Islam provides them.
Yeah, I think everything you say I agree with. I would just also say that Cassius is a very jealous man, and if Cassius was leading it and they were breaking from the nation, he'd be fine with breaking from the nation. It's really about like his jealousy, his inability to be the same man that Julius is. So he talks about like, we're at the feet of a colossus. But, we were swimming once and he almost drowned and I had to save him. Like, I'm just as good as him. And yet, nobody is praising me.
That's his
Um,
male ego speech.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I remember when I was writing this, and this is like such a tangent. But when I was writing this, I was listening to a Biggie Smalls album. Such a tangent. But on one of Biggie Smalls' album, he has a skit on there, and it's called "The Mad Rapper." And the Mad Rapper, all he does is like, someone interviews him and he's like, "Why are you so mad?" And the Mad Rapper is like, "Because my songs are more John Blaze than him. I'm just as good. I'm more John Blaze." And I just, it's such like small man energy, right? Like he
Yeah.
wants to be the big guy, but he cannot be the big guy. He just doesn't. He doesn't have it. Cassius has that. And Brutus thinks of himself as such an upstanding man. But the key is that, like, yeah, sure, he probably is upstanding in a lot of ways. But what gets in Brutus's way, I think, is the vision of who he is. He thinks that he is upstanding in everything he does. And really, it's his fatal flaw.
Self-righteousness.
Exactly,
He just
exactly.
oozes
So
it.
so it's like those two things, right? It's like jealousy from one guy who can whisper into the ear of the self-righteous man and reinforce his self-righteousness. And that's how you get into this mess.
They say he's changed. Yesterday's promises crumble into today, the fine debris robbing us of our breath, suffocating our souls, ripping out our hearts. I know not the cure except his death. The cancer removed, the soul revived, and Harlem whole again, paid for with blood. Yet I am no surgeon, but the knife is in my hands. They say the streets love the name of Brutus, but will they hold me so with bloodstains on my soul? If the city opens up a vein and washes us away, the streets, the brownstones, the parks, the projects, under a sea of red. Oh Harlem, oh Harlem, oh Harlem, let this cup pass.
So I want to talk about the language because it's so transporting, and we heard a little bit of it in the Cinna speech, but how did you think about language in this play? Because you go from very faithful Shakespeare quotes to modern slang kind of in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the job, I think, with this play is to think about like, first of all, I love Shakespeare's original text, but I felt very much that, so much of writing and performing is about confidence. You have to be confident in your writing so that the reader or the person performing it or the audience receiving it knows that they're in good hands and they're willing to go on this journey with you. If you're not confident in those things, I personally think that that's where you lose audiences because they're like, wait, you're going between things and you're not stating what you are. And I think that if I was going to do a mashup of the tragedy of Julius Caesar and Malcolm X's life and my own work, that I fully had to own it. And the way that I owned it was by taking a little bit of Julius Caesar, taking a little bit of the type of language they used in the 60s, and then imbuing it, using me as a glue to bring all of those things together. So for me, I just wanted to go deep into it and be confident about it and like, hey, this is how this play sounds. Ride with me. Just like Shakespeare says to you, like Shakespeare was speaking in the language of his times, but now taken out of time where we are, that text is so confident in what it's trying to say because that's what it's always said.
Right, and that was his voice. And
Exactly.
what I think works so well is the consistency, because you go from exquisite poetry to modern slang with its own exquisite poetry and heartbeat.
Yeah, that was, thank you. I mean, that was the goal. I'm glad you feel that way.
You sound a little doubtful. I guess it does come down to your director too and your actors.
Oh, absolutely.
You let this thing
absolutely.
into the world, and who knows what's going to happen with it.
Can I tell you a secret? I'm going to tell you a secret.
It's a secret. No one's listening.
Yes. So I will not say where, but once this play was performed somewhere, and the director didn't get it. and wasn't able to bring it all together. And I have a videotape because I was recording it. And I have a videotape where like the lens is upright and you're seeing the play, and then slowly it tilts to the side. And it tilts to the side because I'm falling asleep as I'm watching my own play. And then I upright and put it there. And then yeah. So it was like.
Well, that's a low point in a writer's life.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you. And then, at the reading at the Folger, I was like, oh, my God, my play. Like Nicole just does such a great job. The cast did such a great job.
Oh.
This play was read with the Classical Theatre of Harlem, and oh my God, they just it took it to another level. So like I can do all the things that I do, but it has to be interpreted by the right people. And the Folger and the Classical Theatre of Harlem were definitely the right people. They really have just amazing work.
Your father, we said this before, your father was a minister and you grew up in the church. So do the rhythms of sermons influence your writing as you're doing it, and also the way that you experience poetry like Shakespeare?
Yeah, 100%. It's been in me my whole life. And so when I perform, many years ago, I was a slam poet, spoken word artist. And, it was a part of like who I was, is that the way Baptist preachers speak, there's just a rhythm to it. Even if they're not saying anything poetic, I feel like there's poetry to it. And I grew up in it. It's been, such a part of my life that when I am performing and when I am writing, especially like when I was writing Julius X, like it just rings in my head and feels true and right. And so, yeah, I lean into it. I lean into it because it's me. It's such a part of like, what's in my creative DNA.
Which is important because it's authentic and it comes through. There's
Yeah.
a chorus in Julius X.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I remember when I was a little kid, we used to go to church, and when we got there in the morning time, the elders of the church would be doing this thing that they call devotional. And devotional was they took a hymn and they sung it so slow and deep. And I remember as a kid being scared as hell of that singing. Like it freaked me out because I mean,
Why?
like, well, because now that I think about it, it's like the most Southern Gothic thing. Like, you've got
They're all in
all
their
of these,
suits, right?
right? They're all in these black suits with white shirts. They're older black men. Their voices are deep and baritone and they would sing so slow that I felt like they were conjuring spirits, and it
It's
really
like an
scared.
exorcism.
Yes, it scared the hell out of me. It scared the hell out of me. But I can still, like, as I'm describing it to you, I hear it in my head. Like the hymn, that it was always the same hymn, and the hymn was like a charge to carry, and so they would be so deep, and they'd be like, a charge. Oh, like as a kid, it freaked me out. As an adult, I would give anything to hear those men sing again. Oh God, it would take me back to a whole different place and time. But that sound is definitely like deeply in me, and it totally influenced what I did and wrote with the Soothsayers.
Wow. Well, I'm thinking that kind of childhood, just that childhood impression and those rhythms and that
Yeah.
resonance, it goes so deep to some kind of like pre-verbal place in us,
Yes,
which I think the
absolutely.
best theater does too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that is
Absolutely.
theater.
Yep, absolutely.
But we're also in this really challenging time for the arts,
Hmm.
right? Under this
We are.
administration and this crackdown on dissent and on free speech and on diverse viewpoints. You wear so many hats. You've got your writing hat. I know you're writing TV now. You're in a TV writer's room, but you're also a journalist. What are your thoughts about the role of Shakespeare in theater in general in this moment?
Well, I think my thoughts about Shakespeare extend to all the arts, and that is, to quote a famous philosopher, you got to fight the powers that be, and like every step we get, we have to raise our fists and say that we are here and that this is wrong. And also, we ain't going nowhere. These people can come in and say that slavery wasn't so bad and that America has to be this place that reflects the complexion of the founding fathers. And like, I'm just like, yeah, man, sorry. That's not where you can try to do that all you want, but we are never going away. And I'm never going away. And I feel like the arts has to plant a flag and say, like, yeah, dude, we're not going anywhere. And we're going to keep telling the truth. I think, I don't remember who said this, but I remember when I was young, Bill Moyers had a special. It was called The Language of Life. And there were a bunch of poets on there. I'm like in my early 20s listening to this. And the poet said, the job of the poet is to tell the truth. And that has never left me. It has stuck with me that like my job is to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Come what may, what consequences from telling the truth comes. If I want to call myself an artist, then that's what the job is. So I think that theater, music, all the different forms of expression needs to speak that truth over and over and over and loudly. And whether or not the world listens, like that's not my concern. What my concern is that like this is what my job is and that's what I'm going to do. And I don't apply this philosophy to anybody else's art. I'm not going around judging people saying like, you should do this. I don't believe in that. Like I believe in like, I make rules for me. And my rule for my art is that art without purpose is vanity. And I just don't want to be involved in vanity. And so whatever I'm working on, I am thinking about the larger things that I am trying to communicate to people about the world around me, about the things that are churning inside of me, what I'm thinking about, but also like I'm also trying to find ways to like, speak to the commonality in all of us. I'm just finishing a mini series with DC Comics. I had the honor of writing Mr. Terrific, who is in the new Superman movie. I had the honor of writing Mr. Terrific's origin story in a comic book called Mr. Terrific Year One. And that story, what I realized, the thing that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about brotherhood. And I wanted to talk about, making mistakes and trying to find a way to set it right. I wanted to talk about putting good out in the world when all the odds are against you. And to me, like it fit perfectly with the superhero genre. But I'm not trying to do like a superhero story where people just punch each other and they're not saying anything. I'm trying to do a story where you can get people punching each other, you can get the costumes and the fun, but at the end of the day, if you want, you can walk away with a story that really speaks to our times.
Oh, Al Letson, you are so busy. I'm really lucky you had some time to come on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
That was Al Letson, interviewed by Barbara Bogave. Julius X, a re-envisioning of the tragedy of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, opens at the Folger Theatre September 23rd and runs to October 26th. You can get tickets and learn more at folger.edu/JuliusX. This episode was produced by Matt Frasica. Garland Scott is the executive producer. It was edited by Gail Kern-Pastor. Our web producer is Paula Garcia Acuna. Leonor Fernandez edits our transcripts. We had technical help from Voice Tracks West in Studio City, California. Final mixing services provided by Clean Cuts at 3Cs Inc. If you're a fan of Shakespeare Unlimited, please spread the word. Tell a friend about why you love the podcast. Shakespeare Unlimited comes to you from the Folger Shakespeare Library. Home to the world's largest Shakespeare collection, the Folger is dedicated to advancing knowledge and the arts. If you're in Washington, D.C., come visit the Folger on Capitol Hill. Come face-to-face with a Shakespeare First Folio in our exhibition halls, or take in a play in our theater, or enjoy our Quill and Crumb Cafe. We'd love to see you. For more information, visit our website, folger.edu. Until next time, thanks for listening.